Okay, welcome back to the Friday Brew, number 10. We've done it, we've got there, double digits. I didn't think it would happen. Cup of tea at the ready. Yeah, usually with me, I come up with these great ideas. Well, great. And ideas nonetheless. And I'll do maybe one or two, and then I'll get bored. I'll think, oh, it's not working, bored of this. And then I just hope you don't notice, and then we don't mention it again, and then we start another series, and then rinse and repeat. But this one, I've actually stuck at it, and we're at number 10. I can't believe it. So, yeah, thanks to everyone who's left comments and questions. Obviously, that makes the videos last a little bit longer. I know long videos aren't for everybody, but that's what the timestamps are for. And trust me, you're probably going to need it when you see the first topic in a second. Football. Oh, here we go again. But it's the World Cup. It's the World Cup, so it's once every 4 years. Come on. But if you don't want to talk about it, or you don't want to listen to me talking about it, then yeah, by all means use the timestamps. That's what they're there for. So, but yeah, thanks for all the questions. It's really nice to have that engagement, that interaction, and I do appreciate it because, as I've said many times before, you know, when I watch a lot of people do similar kind of vids where they rely on interaction or questions, I very seldom ask any myself. I'm always hoping that other people watching ask them questions so that I can watch it, but I very rarely do it myself. So I wouldn't have been surprised or offended if people didn't ask me any, because it would just be a bit of karma in a way, wouldn't it? But nonetheless, a lot of you rise to the plate, a lot of you are quite regular with the questions, so thank you, it does mean a lot. But never feel under any pressure to do it. Never feel an obligation, because as I always say, or as I say a lot on these vlogs, even if I don't get any questions, I'll still make the vlogs. They'll just be shorter. And like I say, maybe that's what you want. But if you have any questions for 2 weeks' time-ish, then by all means put them in the description box below, and presuming I've not answered them before, or it's nothing crazy, irrelevant or stupidly personal, then chances are I'll answer it. And it could be about anything: gaming, football, music, life, something topical, something's in the news maybe, political, although I don't really want to get too heavy with it, you know what I mean? But yeah, just feel free to ask. Now, what I'm going to do on my screen, I'm going to bring up Wikipedia. Never lies, it always tells the truth. And it's just going to talk about the scores and the games thus far. And yeah, I'll talk about them with you. As I say, if you're not interested, timestamp below. But use it as educational purposes. This is football. It's the World Cup. It's once every 4 years. Come on. So yeah, it started off, didn't it, with Russia beating Saudi Arabia 5-0. That was on the 14th of June. Was that last Thursday or Friday? I don't even know when it was. It was last week anyway. And Saudi Arabia was so bad. But you couldn't really fault the goalkeeper with any of the goals. He didn't look great throughout the game. He made a few flaps at crosses and shots. He didn't look very good at all. But I just thought the goals were... He couldn't really do anything about them. They were all good finishes. Especially the first one by, is it Chersev? Chersev? Is that how you pronounce it? Not even sure. That's the thing with me. I love football, but the older I get, the more I don't know modern players. Ask me questions about players from the late 80s and the early mid-90s. I'll tell you everything about them. But it was a really, really good finish. And his second one was a good one as well. Now, the one I liked more than any of them, really, in a way, I mean, there was a few good goals in there. Like I say, particularly the first one. But it was the Golovin free kick. And it was deep into injury time, 4 minutes into injury time, according to this Wikipedia. Never lies, so it must be true, as I say. And you just had this sense of inevitability that he was going to score. And I was sitting there watching the game, and before he took the free kick, I grabbed the remote control, I turned the sound up a little bit, because I just knew it was going to be a goal. And I wanted to hear the roar of the crowd, that extra little bit loud. And sure enough, Golovin stepped up, curled it round the wall, and it went in right in the corner. It was a really good free kick. Again, you can't blame the goalkeeper. But what I really liked about it, apart from the inevitability of it all, and capping off the opening game, Russia are the hosts, just a brilliant experience. What I loved about it was his celebration. He didn't go running away. It's just as the ball was going in, you could see him just raising his arms in the air. And it looked kind of cocky, but I don't think he meant it that way. It was just this sense, like I say, of inevitability that obviously he must have sensed. It just summed up the whole game, the whole evening. And it was just really it looked really cool, a really cool celebration. So that was that. Russia destroyed them. And but here's the thing. I don't think Russia are going to win the World Cup. They're the host nation. They've got all the support. It's probably going to push them through to maybe the second round, possibly the quarter-final. I don't think they're good enough to win. But you can't fault a 5-0 start against anybody. That was pretty impressive. And then in the next game, in the group, it was Egypt 0, Uruguay 1. Jimenez scoring in the last minute. I think that was a header from a corner, wasn't it? And Mohamed Salah not playing in that game. So, they definitely missed him. But he was fit for the next game, which was against Russia, which was just the other day, and Russia won 3-1. Again, I didn't think Russia were amazing, but they've got that home support, and I think that pushes them on that little bit more. So Salah played in this one. He scored a penalty, but it was too little too late. They did. And then in the last group game so far, it was Uruguay 1, Saudi Arabia 0. Again, Saudi Arabia not looking particularly good, although better, clearly. They didn't lose 5-0. And Luis Suarez, he didn't bite anybody this time. At least I don't think he did. But he did score the goal. And it was a nice little celebration he had, I think celebrating the impending birth, I think in the next few weeks or whenever it may be, of, I believe, their third child. So there's some useless information for you. So moving on to Group B, and we had Morocco 0, Iran 1. Now that made me laugh, really. I had to feel sorry for him, because the player, if I pronounced it right, Boudadouze, he plays for St. Pauli in Germany. And I remember on the game at the time seeing it, because I was watching the game and also had Twitter up at the same time, multitasking, of course. And his team, St. Pauli in Germany, they put out a tweet and they said, good luck to our player, he's about to go onto the world stage, and the best of luck, all that kind of stuff. And he ends up scoring the own goal in the 95th minute, and it was a good one as well, a diving header. But of all the things to say, to wish him good luck, and then he's the one who scores the own goal that loses his team the game. Obviously not on purpose, but it was a special own goal. So that was that. It was a pretty uneventful game, or at least I thought it was. But then the next one, Portugal 3, Spain 3, was really good. Not just really good because there was a lot of goals, although that usually makes an entertaining game, but just I thought the standard was good. There was quite a lot of chances, and Cristiano Ronaldo scoring the hat-trick. And just like the Golovin goal, the free kick, Cristiano Ronaldo, he stood up with, well, how long was left? In the 88th minute, or 86th minute? 88th minute. And again, it was the same thing. I turned the sound up on the television because I knew he was going to score. It was just this sense of certainty. You knew what was going to happen. You know, cometh the hour, cometh the man, big name player, always delivers, and you knew it was going to go in, and he scored the free kick, and it was a really good finish. And it resulted in the draw, 3-3 draw. So that was a really good game. I thought Spain, as you sort of expected, had a lot of the possession, but it probably should have won the game, really. And then the next game, speaking of Ronaldo, he scored his 4th goal of the tournament in the 4th minute, diving header from a corner, so they beat Morocco 1-0. And then we had Spain beating Iran 1-0. I think Spain were, I mean, again, they had so much possession. They had the majority of chances, shots on goal, shots on target. Iran, I think, had 1 shot on target. If you discount the goal that they had disallowed, I mean, it was offside, to be fair. So moving on to Group C, and the opening game was France beating Australia 2-1, and we had VAR rearing its ugly head. VAR or VAR, not sure how you pronounce it, but I just don't like it. It basically, for me, ruins the flow of the game. It takes the emotion out of the game. It takes the drama out of the game. I mean, you could say it adds its own drama. Fair enough, I guess it does. But it just takes something away, the here and now of football. That immediate kind of, you know, when you score a goal, that feel-good, that buzz you get as a fan, and obviously as a player as well. And then all of a sudden, in the back of your mind, you must be wondering, hang on, is this going to be pulled back for a free kick to the other team, or what's going on? You don't really know. So I hope it doesn't stop players from celebrating. And it's kind of getting that way already. Players are looking around at VAR, and I'm just not into it at all. So the Griezmann penalty was given, and even then, that was a little bit contentious. Some people would say, was it a penalty, wasn't a penalty? It ultimately comes down to some people making a decision in a studio watching the replays. So there's no guarantee that the decision made is going to be right either. So I'm just not a fan of it. Also, really the main reason I'm not a fan of it is it takes away that rivalry. You know, when you're at school or at college, at work, at your home, outside, wherever you are, where you're talking to a fellow fan, maybe a fan of the other team, and you'll have that banter, that rivalry, and you'll say, God, bloody hell, that goal that we got, we were lucky there. That's what used to be the way. Whereas now, that's going to disappear because VAR is correcting everything. But anyway, France beat Australia 2-1. Then we had Denmark beating Peru 1-0. Denmark's goal coming on the break, really. Peru were quite unlucky. The next round of games, Denmark drawing with Australia and France beating Peru. And so basically what that means is France are already through with their 2 games they played. Denmark are currently second. They're probably going to go through. They need a point to guarantee it. They're going to be playing France. France are already through, as I say, so they may rest 1 or 2 players. and it could make it easier for Denmark to qualify as a result. But if they do that, and France lose to Denmark, then Denmark are going to finish top. So maybe France have got to put out their best team. But I still think Denmark are probably going to go through. They'll probably get a point. Australia will probably beat Peru, maybe, but it may not be enough if Denmark get that point. So that is that. Now moving on to Group D. Now this is a farce for Argentina. So it started off with Argentina drawing 1-1 against Iceland. Not really a surprise if you think about it. You know, Iceland in recent years have really come on, you know, big time, and they're actually a decent team. What we're seeing a lot these days is a lot of the smaller nations are having players playing in the likes of the Premier League, Serie A, La Liga, the Bundesliga. They're playing their trade in the top leagues, and as a result, their nations are therefore improving. So it's making international football really tight. So if this was like 10, 20, 30 years ago, Argentina v Iceland would be a pretty straightforward 3 or 4-0 win. In fact, Iceland probably wouldn't even have qualified. But now, very much a different kettle of fish. And Argentina without Messi, nah, absolutely nothing really. Got some good players, of course they have, but he really drives them. But he couldn't really do anything in the game against Iceland. In fact, he missed the penalty, so that was a draw. The next game, Croatia beat Nigeria 2-0. And then Argentina 0, Croatia 3 in the next round, which was absolutely ridiculous. Caballero, ex-City goalkeeper, he looks very, very shaky for Argentina. He made a mistake quite recently in goal for Argentina as well. I think it was like a friendly just before the World Cup. But as a team, they just do not function. And Croatia just blew them away. 3-0 was an absolute hiding. And but what can you do? So as it stands, Croatia have already qualified with 2 games played. And Iceland have got 1 point, but they've only played 1 game. They play Nigeria, I don't know, 26, what date is that? 20, it's a few days from now. So Argentina, basically, the way it's going, will have to beat Nigeria. Will have to beat them. And even then, that may not be enough. So that's a big, big problem for Argentina, who, of course, many people thought could potentially win the competition. It's not looking like that's going to happen now, that's for sure. Moving on to Group E, we had Serbia beating Costa Rica 1-0. Kolarov with a really good free kick, another ex-City player there. So, yeah, he's done that before over the years. It was a really good free kick. Not a particularly eventful match, though. Then we had Brazil 1, Switzerland 1. That was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it? You'd expect Brazil to win. But maybe, again, it's that thing of teams getting better and the gap is closing. So, maybe, fair play to Switzerland. And so far, that's all we've had. Just had that 1 round of matches. I think the next group of games, or next round of games, are tomorrow, I think. So, that is that. Brazil probably going to go through, and I guess probably Serbia, on the basis that they've got like 3 points on the board already. Group F, we've got Germany, who lost to Mexico, which was a big, big shock. Yeah, absolutely. I've touched upon the fact before that my grandma on my mum's side and all her family are German, so I like to see Germany doing well. But of course, I've also got with other grandparents and great-grandparents, Scottish, Irish on both sides of the border, and now I live in America, born in England as well, so I get to support loads of teams. It's brilliant. So I like to see Germany doing well, but losing to Mexico was a big, big shock, and it puts them in a bad position, even after just 1 game. In the other game, Sweden beat South Korea 1-0, so it means that with 1 game played, we've got Sweden top with Mexico second, both on 3 points. And it really means Germany have got to beat Sweden, and that's not going to be an easy game. If that's a draw, it's a big if, and then presuming that Mexico beats South Korea, which probably should happen, that will mean that Germany will have to beat South Korea, which again you'd expect to happen. But then it would also mean, I think, that if Mexico and Sweden draw, which is a probable result, Germany could be out. So there's a big, big game coming up for Germany against Sweden. If they lose it, they're basically out. So moving on to Group G, and of course that's England's group. So it started off with Belgium 3, Panama 0. Very straightforward. We all expected that, really. I think Dries Mertens, with the first goal, probably, so far, has scored the best goal of the tournament. A really good finish. Almost Van Basten-like, if you remember that one from '88. Although Van Basten's was closer to the byline. This was a lot further in. But similar in the sense that it was a nicely timed volley over the keeper's head into the corner. Really good finish. And then Lukaku scoring twice to complete the rout. And then, of course, we had Tunisia 1, England 2. Now, I did watch the game, but I'm not going to lie, I'll be honest, I turned it off with 2 minutes left out of frustration. Typical England, same old England, can't even beat bloody Tunisia. And then the game finished, obviously, because I walked away after 88 minutes. and then I was pottering around the house for like 10-15 minutes. So the game had finished, obviously, like I say, in the meantime, and I thought, right, well, I'm going to check the score. So I came into this very room, put the computer on, went onto the BBC website, but I did that classic thing. I don't know if any of you watching have done this in the past, especially if you're around about my age, with teletext. There's a blast from the past. And teletext will come up. And what we used to do, or what I would do, and I know a lot of other people did, is you'd put your hand over the score of the team, or whichever team. Sometimes people would put it over the opposition score, so you could see your team first. But I would usually put it over the hand of the opposition, of my team, see what the opposition did, and then gingerly move my hand away and see what my team did. And that's what I did with this one. So I loaded the BBC website up. It's ridiculous at my age. Loaded the BBC website up, loaded it like it's a Spectrum game. Just went on the website, and straight away kind of looked away and put my hand there, and I could see it said Tunisia won. So straight away I was like, right, well, at least Tunisia didn't win. Disappointing, a draw's rubbish, but at least they didn't lose. And then I slowly pulled my hand away, and it said England 2, Harry Kane. I was like, I don't believe it, bloody hell. Typical, I've missed the bloody goal. But I was relieved, obviously, very pleased. Went straight away onto Twitter, onto YouTube, looked for the goal, because people are always uploading goals these days on social media, within seconds. And it was a good finish. Why he was unmarked at the back post like that, Harry Kane, of all places, one of the most lethal strikers at the World Cup. Bad defending, but obviously, no complaints. So I did think England deserved the win. I'm not gonna lie about it. I thought the penalty wasn't a penalty. Again, it's this thing. It's just subjective. That's the thing, isn't it, with VAR or VAR, whatever it is. It's very subjective. It's one person's opinion over the other, which is always the case anyway with the referee. But this one, it makes it seem more subjective than ever. A group of random people in a room, whoever they are, and presuming they're qualified referees. And for me, it's not a penalty. But of course, you get a lot of experts coming out saying it was a definite penalty. And then you get people who say it was soft and it shouldn't have been given. It's subjective. For me, it wasn't a penalty. They had so many chances. Sterling missed a chance early doors. There's a footballing cliche if ever there was one. Jesse Lingard had a couple hit the outside of the post. He should have done a lot better, I think, on the second one. John Stones had a chance as well. He skied that. It was just really poor final third, really. And Sterling, as much as I love him, he's a brilliant player. It just didn't work. It didn't work in the game whatsoever. But I'm not going to, say he should be dropped immediately. But maybe do what England did in the game against Tunisia. If it's not working with sort of 20 minutes left, bring him off, bring Rashford on, because he's very direct. I thought Rashford did very well when he came on. And maybe not good enough to start, not right now, but to come on as an impact player, yeah, very much so. And I thought Loftus-Cheek did really well when he came on. I've got to be honest, when he was about to come on, I thought it was quite an uninspiring substitution. I didn't think he'd do too well, but he did. He actually did very, very well. So, good win for England. As it stands, just one game played in the group. Belgium and England on 3 points. And the next group of games, England have got to play Panama. They really should win that, but of course with England, you never know. They'll beat the teams you expect them to lose to, and then they'll lose the games you expect them to win. So, but they really should beat Panama, and if they do, they're basically through. Well, they will be through. And Belgium against Tunisia, Belgium will probably win that one. And then last but not least, we've got Group H, which is the first group of games. Well, in fact, we've only had one round so far. It was Colombia 1, Japan 2, which was a bit of a surprise. I didn't expect that to happen. I think that also had the first red card, didn't it? Was that the game that had the first red card? Maybe I'm lying, but I think it could have been. But yeah, I thought maybe Colombia could win that, or possibly a draw. But Japan obviously got the win, 2-1, so fair play. Well done to them. And then Poland losing to Senegal, that was a big surprise. Was not expecting that one. The winning goal by Niang was a little bit controversial. Well, very controversial, because what you had, he'd went off play. I can't remember if he must have went off injured, I guess. And he was waiting for the referee to wave him back on. And he was waiting in the half, just past the halfway line of Poland. And then the referee, when Senegal were on the break, attacking towards the half of Poland. When Senegal were attacking the half of Poland, the referee then waved him on. So the player didn't just come on. You can't blame the player. He specifically waited for the referee. You clearly saw the referee waved him on, but he waved him on at the worst possible time, because it was just as the ball was going through. So Niang just raced through in between the defender and the keeper, got the ball, knocked it round him, and essentially put it into an empty net. And it was just, you can't blame the player. But it was a ridiculous decision by the referee. He should have just waited until it was like a dead ball incident, or the ball was in the corner, or you should have just waited until there was a non-event happening, but it was the worst possible time to wave the player on. And Poland, as you'd expect, were pretty angry with the decision, but what can you do? It was absolutely farcical. But there we are. So that's the World Cup thus far. If anyone watched that, of course, maybe you've just switched to the timestamps. So I am enjoying it. But of course, with the time difference, it's hard to keep up with it all. It really is. Because some of the early games are taking place at like 3 o'clock in the morning, American time, and I'm not getting up to watch that for all manner of reasons. And, you know, with work and for other responsibilities and other interests and just other stuff, it's hard to find the time to watch all these games. But I've been watching a few, and I am enjoying it, but there's been a few rubbish matches, but you're always going to get that. Now, moving on to what have I been watching, nearly said playing, that's coming in a bit. What have I been watching lately? So I've been watching a couple of things. The first thing I watched was a movie, and so getting back into watching movies again. And I watched, don't laugh, because I really like it, Crocodile Dundee from 1986, Paul Hogan. Yeah, this is the first time I've watched Crocodile Dundee for absolutely ages. In fact, it could well be for 25 years, maybe more since I first watched it. So I kind of knew the premise, of course, but I'd pretty much forgotten really what happens, other than the odd famous scene here and there with the knife. You know, that's quite a famous one. You probably know it. But yeah, I liked it. I've got to be honest. It's quite cheesy. It's a mid-80s movie, well, 1986. And I just really like it. A feel-good era. For me personally, and obviously this is fueled by nostalgia, but for me the best movies are the 80s, probably all the way through to the 90s as well. It just had some kind of like a feel-good factor. It was fun. It was just a really good era. But of course, again, it's very much nostalgic driven. That feeling that I've got towards it. I was a kid, and yeah, so you naturally kind of gravitate towards that kind of era. But yeah, I really liked it. Now the basic premise, if you're not aware, I'm just gonna have a quick cig. Not gonna have a cig at all. I don't smoke, never have, never will. Quick swig of tea. So yeah, the basic premise is you've got Paul Hogan, Mick Dundee, basically. And he's this infamous kind of crocodile hunter, essentially, in his local community. And a lot of the stories of him, like, you know, wrestling with not just snakes, but crocodiles, most notably, and other wildlife. You know, he's the man. All these stories of him escaping death, you know, from the claws of like literal claws of crocodiles, and him getting out of trouble and rescuing people and surviving and just doing the impossible, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so this makes its way somehow to this New York journalist who figures out or finds out about Mick Dundee and his shenanigans and his local kind of reputation. And she wants to report on it and bring it to America, essentially, make them aware for the newspaper, just to sell more columns or sell more newspapers, all that kind of stuff. So she's in Australia. Her character's called Sue Charlton. Her real name is Linda Kozlowski. Funnily enough, 4 years later, after the movie, she ends up marrying Paul Hogan. Kind of weird. So obviously they met on set. It's kind of weird how that works. But yeah, so she plays Sue Charlton, a reporter, getting this story on Mick Dundee. And the movie only lasts about an hour and a half. And the first, or maybe a bit more, maybe, yeah, there or thereabouts, an hour and a half. The first part of the movie, literally almost the first half to the minute, is based in the outback. So it's her following Mick Dundee around, and they're getting to know each other. They're starting to fall for each other a little bit. And it happens quite quickly, got to be honest. But she's like learning all the tricks of the trade of what it's like to survive in the outback. And there's a few examples, like he rescues her from a crocodile who nearly eats her and all that kind of stuff. And then the second half of the movie, again, almost to the minute, 45 minutes spent in Australia, 45 minutes in New York City. So the second half is basically him acclimatising as a tourist to New York. I think it's either the first time he's ever been to any city, or he may have said in the movie he'd been there once as a kid or something. I can't quite remember. But certainly it's his first time in New York, outside of America, maybe his first time out of Australia, and maybe his first time out of the outback. So he's like a complete outsider, a fish out of water. The whole thing of being in a big city with it being so busy and people being like sardines walking into each other. He's not liking it, although he kind of likes like the lifestyle and the fact it's different, but he's acclimatised into it and he's finding it quite difficult. Some of the slang is quite funny. Now, the one thing that I'll quite say, or I will say, is I found it quite sad in a way, because as I was watching the movie, a few things happened, and it made me instantly think, I bet people watching this maybe for the first time are going to find it either sexist, homophobic, or racist, because there's a few remarks which are made in the movie which were very much of its time, which you couldn't really say today. But maybe not even that. I'd say people, if they are offended, and of course, here's the thing, as I was watching the movie, like I say, I thought to myself, I bet people are going to get offended. And as I was watching the film, I said to myself, what I'm going to do when this movie finishes, I'm going to go onto Twitter, I'm going to look to see what people think of it, because I knew some people wouldn't like it. But you've got to take into consideration that not just was it from a different era, like the mid-80s, but I think really a lot of people miss the point and choose to be offended, which is what happens a lot in society today, which I think I touched upon in my last vlog, and they refuse and will refuse, because it doesn't fit their narrative. They refuse to accept that it's part of the character. You've got to bear in mind the character comes from the outback in Australia. He's not used to being in a city. He's not used to seeing certain people with certain lifestyles. So he's got all these kind of stereotypes that he has. It's living up to the character. I'll give you kind of one sort of example. There's the chauffeur in New York City is a black guy. The chauffeur's black. And when Paul Hogan, Mick Dundee, I should say, that Paul Hogan's a real person, so let's not confuse it. I don't want to be one of those people who confuses it for real life. It's obviously a movie. So Mick Dundee meets the chauffeur for the first time, and Mick Dundee asks the black guy, which is relevant, he asks him what tribe is he in. Now, you can just see social justice warriors in this day and age going absolutely mental on Twitter. But you have to bear in mind that, and it was explained, this is the thing, it was explained in the story earlier on when they were in Australia. It was explained that Mick Dundee was brought up by Aborigines in a tribe. So he was used to, when he saw black people, he was used to them being in a tribe because he was in the outback. He wasn't in the city. So he naturally thought that this black chauffeur used to, or still does, belong to a tribe. So if you want to get offended by that, I think you're deliberately just trying to get offended. You shouldn't take things out of context. So it was all within context for me, but like I say, we're living in an era where people are gonna get offended, and sure enough, after the movie, I went onto eBay. What's that got to do with anything? Well, I did go onto eBay actually. That's another story. I went onto to YouTube and I went onto Twitter, and there were people just complaining, saying, "Oh, it's out of touch. It's racist. He shouldn't have been able to say that." It's like it was 1986, number one, and it was relevant to the character. Get a grip. So. But nonetheless, maybe some of those things you couldn't really say today, but it was a different era, and it was very much contextual. So, and I found it funny. I've got to be honest. It was delivered really well, and it was a funny comment. With that same chauffeur driver, there was an episode later on in the movie where Mick Dundee was somewhat rescued by that driver from like a gang, and the guy crashes his car, the chauffeur, deliberately into the bad guys to kind of knock them over, knock them out. And then one of them was running away, and he takes off the, not like a spoiler, whatever the part is called off the back of the car, and he bends it into like a boomerang, again, keeping with the Australian theme, and he throws it like 200 yards into the distance, hits the target, the bad guy, which is obviously his intention. Of course he did, it's a movie, he was never going to miss. And the bad guy falls over, and then Mick Dundee looks at him and he's like, "You sure you're not part of a tribe?" So again, he went back for like the double kind of joke. So many people just want to get offended over nothing. And again, I laughed. It was funny. I found it funny. There's a couple of things which may be construed as possibly slightly homophobic. But again, we're watching this now in 2018 or whatever year we're watching it in the future. And we're judging it. But as I keep saying, you've got to bear in mind it was a different era. But above all, it was in context of the character. And I think that's very important. I really do. People just want to get offended too easily. So I really like the movie. Obviously, as I say, it's not the first time I've ever seen it. I watched it back in the day, and I'm sure I watched it like in the early 90s sometime. But I don't think I've seen it since. So it's a really good, brief, short, but feel-good kind of movie with a few laughs. I found it quite funny, I've got to be honest, with some of the dialogue. I think there's actually an Australian version of the movie. I mean, obviously it's the same one, but with extra footage, like the movie lasts a little bit longer. And I think it focuses a lot more with Australian kind of slang terms, which they cut out of the international movie because people probably wouldn't get it. Brits probably would, I guess, growing up with neighbours and all that kind of stuff. But maybe Americans wouldn't. So, yeah, I really liked it. And the way the movie ends, it was very, very obvious that there was going to be a sequel. Because not a lot happened. Because, like I say, the first 45 minutes were in Australia, and then it only focused with 45 minutes in America. And that's not enough to really tell a story. So it was always going to be a sequel. It was always on the cards. Now, I did go to watch the sequel the next day. I watched Crocodile Dundee the other day. I did go to watch it the following day, and it was on Amazon Prime. But you had to pay for it, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to pay for it. The first one was free. I didn't want to pay like $4 or $5. I think it was $3.99. So like, what is that in pounds? About £2.50 or something. I just thought, you know what, I might as well just get the Blu-ray. So that's probably going to cost me $6 or $7. That'll have both movies on there, and then I'll have them to watch them as and when I want. So I think I'm probably going to do that. So as and when I get that Blu-ray, and as and when I watch Crocodile Dundee 2, I'll talk about it on the vlog. It may be the next one, or it may be the one after, but I'm really in the mood to watch it. Like I say, I really wanted to watch the sequel straight away, but I was unwilling to pay $4 for a stream, cheapskate. And I did find out, that Crocodile Dundee 3, if you want to call it 3, it's the third one in the series anyway, it's called something like Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles, or down in LA, or something like that, downtown in LA. And it came out in 2001. I had no idea. And that's a big gap. From 1986 was the first, 1988 was the second, and then to 2001. So yeah, it definitely crept under the radar for a lot of people. By all accounts, it isn't very good. I am very reluctant to watch it, I've got to be honest. But maybe I will, just to see what it's like. But for me, it will always be Crocodile Dundee 1 and 2. A bit like Home Alone. For me, it's always 1 and 2, not 3. 3's a bit different in the sense that it's a different actor, you know, whereas Paul Hogan does play Mick Dundee in Crocodile Dundee 3, if that's what it's called. But still, I'm a bit wary of watching it, but we'll see. So, yeah, and I just watched this earlier on, actually, and it's football related, always football heavy. But, again, this is really interesting, and I urge you to watch it, because it really is a tragic tale. It's called Forbidden Games, the Justin Fashanu story. Now, Justin Fashanu was basically the first gay footballer, maybe still to date, the only gay current playing, well, obviously he's not, he died, that's one of the tragic things about it, but even today, I should say, in the era that we're living in, there's no gay footballers are currently out. There's some who have come out after they've stopped playing, like Thomas Hitzlberger, who used to play for Aston Villa, the German player, with the best Brummie accent of all time, I think, with all the time he spent in England. But yeah, in terms of playing, I don't think there's anybody, not in England, not in the top flight. And if you think about that, that is absolutely absurd. It doesn't make any sense. The chances are there's probably, I'd say, at least two gay players in every football squad. There must be. It stands to reason, but no one wants to come out. And I really don't understand why. Well, listen, don't get me wrong. Obviously, people are going to get a lot of criticism because of society. But I think the support they're going to get, it will be overwhelming compared to what it would have been. Times have changed. Times have moved on. It's a different time, a different era. It's totally accepting. Well, 99% accepting. People just wouldn't care. They really wouldn't for the most part. But I guess it's just that minority, that 1% of people who really do still care. And that's preventing these people from coming out. And it's a real shame. It really is. Because, like I say, no gay footballers are out in the top leagues, and certainly in England. It doesn't make sense. It's obviously ridiculous. But with Justin Fashanu specifically, this was the golden boy for many, many reasons. His story was tragic in the sense that his parents, or his mum in particular, I think that he may have split up with their dad, and she was in the UK and then moved back to Nigeria, but she put her sons into an orphanage. Her other son, of course, John Fashanu, who went on and played for England, most notably famous for playing for Wimbledon and Aston Villa, hosting Gladiators as well. But like I say, played twice for England at international level. He was a good player, John Fashanu. He was never great. He was quite strong, quite dirty in a way, quite physical, but he was a decent player, just decent, that's all. But Justin Fashanu, who was his older brother, he came onto the scene in the late 70s. He was the first black £1 million transfer. He was the youngest £1 million transfer period. You know, he was all the top clubs were interested in him. He was doing well for Norwich City. Scored that amazing goal against Liverpool, a really famous goal where he flicked it onto his left foot, kind of turned around the goalkeeper, the defender, and hit it in right to the top corner past, I guess it would have been Ray Clements in the Liverpool goal. A brilliant goal, often showed on like all these, you know, old 101 great goal videos and compilations and all that kind of stuff. So he was a next big thing, a really hot property. Late teens at the time, burst onto the scene. And then Nottingham Forest, who were a massive team at the time, remember they won 2 back-to-back European Cups, Champions Leagues, they expressed an interest in buying him. They were the ones under Brian Clough who paid £1 million for him, and it all went wrong. His life started to go wrong as soon as he went to Nottingham Forest, because Brian Clough, the way he was very old school, and the whole gay thing, I don't think he liked it. And even though I don't think he was out at that point, he was... it was kind of obvious with what he was doing, his lifestyle he was living, and maybe, even though maybe at that point it wasn't public, people knew about it within football. And Brian Clough, by all accounts, took a big problem, or had a big problem with that. Took issue with it, and started to sort of ostracise really Justin Fashanu, and blocked him, banned him from training. I remember I watched it on the TV, on the film, but Justin Fashanu went to turn up for training, and the police were called to escort him off the premises, basically because ultimately he was gay. It must have been. Now, what didn't help his case is the fact that Justin Fashanu wasn't replicating his form for Norwich. He wasn't scoring goals for Forest. So when you're costing a lot of money and you're not scoring goals, it's obviously going to be a problem. But you throw in the whole gay thing as well, and Brian Clough allegedly having a problem with it. It just really... It harmed Justin Fashanu as a player. He started to drift away from his brother as well, especially when the gay thing came out, because he went public with it as well in, I think, like 1990. So it's like a few years later. And just clubs didn't want to touch him. Different era, a bit like Crocodile Dundee. Different times, people with a different mentality. So clubs wouldn't buy him. They didn't want to be seen near him. There was a whole gay thing as well, that taboo subject. He was going out and cruising a lot. He was being caught. He was having relationships with MPs, members of parliament. He was making the front page of newspapers. There was just a lot of negativity was surrounding him. And his life, just like I say, it spiraled out of control. And he went to America. Ultimately, what ended up happening, he became like very much a journeyman. He played for City as well. He played for Newcastle, but it was a game here, a game there. And then he turned up at like Leyton Orient in the 3rd Division. And then playing for like the Hamilton Steelers in Canada. Like, who are they? His career just went. He was injured for 1.5 years, I think, as well. It was just really, really sad. His relationship broke down with his family, with his brother. He didn't want to really speak to his mum anymore. It's so sad, it really was. And of course, it ultimately culminated tragically with him killing himself. He hung himself in 1998, towards the end of the 97-98 season, just before the World Cup, in a garage in London. What had happened basically is that he was accused of sexual relationships with one of the players on the team, but the problem was, he was like the player coach at the time. The big problem, was that the kid was 17, and obviously it was illegal, as you'd expect. And the kid reported it to the police, and the police issued a warrant for Justin Fashanu's arrest in Canada, and Justin Fashanu fled. He got on the first flight back to London, and he couldn't cope with it. He didn't want to go to jail. He said to friends apparently that he was innocent, that he didn't do anything. There's footage that I watched on the film of the actual kid saying, who's a man now. Although I don't know when that footage was taken. It could have been like from years and years and years ago. But the kid said that, Justin Fashanu did what he said that he did. Fashanu denied it. So you've got this terrible situation now where there's only 2 people who know the truth, and one of them is obviously alive and one of them's dead. Who do you believe? The thing is, what Justin Fashanu did, his lifestyle was hanging around with a lot of rent boys. Apparently, in the movie, people were saying that, and just boasting about it, really. The fact that he did that and had such a kind of a carefree lifestyle, it makes you naturally think that maybe he did something, but then we'll never know. And it's just a really tragic, very tragic tale of a footballer who started off, who could have been so good, and his life just went so wrong, ultimately culminating to being so depressed to have to do that to yourself is just absolutely terrible. And then the worst thing, really, if that wasn't bad enough, it's obviously interviewing John Fashanu, which is his brother, and his family as well. And John Fashanu is just obviously very upset about it. And it just, it was terrible. It was a hard watch, it really was. But if you're into your football, if you're into just something which is a really fascinating but terribly sad story, I urge you to watch it. It lasts about an hour and 20 minutes there or thereabouts. So you don't have to be a football fan to watch it. It's not about football. It's much bigger than that. It's about someone at the time who was struggling with his identity and was denying it initially, and then he wasn't. He was also, this is the thing, there's a lot of, it almost turned into a bit of a pathological liar who's being found out all the time because he was trying to be someone that he wasn't. And then there's this really weird spell, and I do remember this from the time, where he was dating, what's her name, Julie Goodyear, Bet from Coronation Street. I mean, what an absolute mismatch. It's really bizarre. She must have been about 20 years older than him as well. On top of the thing that he's meant to be gay, and then he was trying to say he was bisexual. It was a weird situation. Just tragic. Really tragic, but a really good movie, or documentary if you like. And yes, it doesn't really show too much football. There's a little bit, of course. It's more about the impact and his life and just how off the rails it went. So I think I've talked about that enough. But again, I urge you, Forbidden Games, the Justin Fashanu story, it's really, really good. Quite emotional. You're going to have a heart of stone not to, tear up a little bit maybe at the end. But it was a good watch. It was well put together. But terribly sad, really was. Now, moving on to what I've been playing lately. The first one is Porsche Challenge. You'll see this is the American one, like a slim standard dual music CD case, essentially. So, yeah, Porsche Challenge is one I used to have back in the day on the PAL format, of course. Would have paid like 40 quid for it. The release price, crazy. And it's cheap now. You'd probably pick it up, I'm guessing, in PAL regions for maybe a couple of quid, 2-3 quid. And even in America, this cost me $5 including shipping. So very, very cheap. 5 quid again being about, $5 being around about £3, there or thereabouts. So it's a very simplistic game. You're basically, the only car you've got different colours you can go in. There may be some different models, I think, but it's basically the Porsche, or some people say Porsche for me, the Porsche Boxer. That's basically the car that you're driving around. There it is on the front, and of course, if you can see any graphics on the back, possibly not. But the thing is, like many games back then, the tracks are quite limited, very much like the next one. You've got 4 on here. You've got USA, Japan, Stuttgart, Germany, of course, and then the Alpine track, so it's all kind of snow. You do get 20 track combinations, it says, so it at least mixes it up a little bit, but ultimately it's 4 separate tracks, or environments, if you like. But yeah, I do like it. The thing is, I remember really struggling on this one when I played it all those years ago, back in 1996. It does say 1997 on the back of here, but I think that was when the American version come out. I'm pretty certain the PAL version was 96. Not that it matters, but, got to be matter of fact. And at least I think I'm matter of fact anyway. So yeah, there's not a lot of choice of cars, it must be said. There's not a lot of tracks. There's a few track combinations, 20 as I say. But yeah, altogether it's quite a cut down game. But I like it. I used to like it back in the day. The playability for me was really, really good. But here's the weird thing. For me, I always remember it being really, really playable. But I put it on the other day, and admittedly, and this is maybe the big factor, I changed the mode from the default, which is simulation, and I changed it to arcade. And I've not yet gone back and played it as the simulation mode, which is, as I say, the default mode. And what I found with the arcade mode is it's very twitchy. You really, honestly, the slightest movement that you make with either the analog stick on the PS1 pad or the just the D-pad, the slightest movement, you're moving all over the place. You really are. So I think the best way to play this, and really I should have put it on again on the simulation mode before making this vid, just to confirm. But I think really when you play this game, it's best to put it on simulation mode. And then once you've got used to that control, maybe edge your way into playing the arcade. But it's a bit too twitchy for me, too fast maybe, too responsive, too sensitive, I guess. So for me, when I play this game going forward, until I perfect arcade, it's going to have to be, and that's going to take years, it's going to have to be the simulation mode. It plays a lot more of a realistic, as you can imagine being a simulation, plays a lot more, with a lot more realism, and is a lot better game for it, in my opinion. And then last but not least, what I've been playing is a game called Frenetic. Now, I've been playing this on the Amiga and the Atari ST. This particular version is the Atari ST. Of course, the boxes are all the same. You could never really tell the difference between the ST and Amiga version, unless you look at the sticker, or sometimes it's imprinted on the card. But if I didn't tell you this was an ST version, you wouldn't have a clue. But what I've done is I've downloaded the Amiga version onto the ROM, onto a blank disc, and then used that on my actual Amiga 600. So I've played both versions. So it's basically a shoot 'em up. It's a vertical shoot 'em up, and just think of the classics. The Xenon 2s, if you like, is the one which immediately springs to mind. Now, what I'll say with this is, as was usually the case, there's not a massive difference between the Amiga version and the Atari ST version. The graphics are a little bit better on the Amiga. That was usually the case. The sound was usually 90% of the time, not 100, but 90% of the time, was better on the Amiga. And again, it is compared to the ST version. But other than that, the only difference that I noticed is that the ST version is slower, and it's particularly noticeable on the end of level boss, and particularly as well the first level boss, which is this kind of moon crater thing, or just a moon that comes down and bounces kind of around the screen. But when it shoots out its guns towards you, it's really, really slow, and you'd have to be an idiot to get caught by it. The Amiga version is definitely faster, and it makes it a little bit harder. But yeah, and one of the things as well I didn't like about the end of level boss, I think it was the same for the second level as well, because I got to level 3, but it was certainly on level 1. In fact, it would have been level 2 as well. But basically, as you're shooting the end of level boss, you have no idea how much progress you're making, how much damage you're doing, because there's no health bar, no damage bar, no indication like of a percentage as to how much you're taking off him. So basically, you've just got to keep shooting away until you kill them, basically. And through having done it a few times now, the first level's probably going to take you about a couple of minutes. So a couple of minutes of relentlessly shooting into this enemy. You see you're doing damage in the sense that the screen, or the part that you're shooting, is kind of flashing on and off. So you can see that you're having an impact and doing the damage, but it doesn't tell you how much. And that, for me, it's kind of a little bit frustrating. You could say that if it was real, when obviously it wouldn't be real because it's very much clearly a game, but if you were in that real life scenario, then you wouldn't know how much damage you're doing. You would just keep shooting them until you kill them, essentially. So you can, if you like, kind of immerse yourself into the game and look at it from that perspective. But from a gamer's perspective, I find it frustrating. I think there really should have been like a power bar, health bar, an energy bar, call it what you will. That really would have helped, because it does get a little bit boring, a little bit kind of samey and monotonous, and it just, yeah, so they could have done something about that. But other than that, it's basically the same game on the Amiga and the ST. I have been having fun with it. So moving on to what I'm currently reading, I've just picked this one up just the other day, actually. It's George Michael, Freedom, the ultimate tribute, 1963 to 2016. So yeah, much like the Justin Fashanu story, which of course is very sad, George Michael passing away, that was arguably worse for me personally, because George Michael is probably my favourite male solo artist of all time. And yeah, when that news came through, on Christmas Day, of all days, can you believe it? Not that there's a good day for anybody to die, but Christmas Day, come on. I mean, that's the ultimate slap in the face, isn't it? So yeah, it was very, very sad, and it still seems shocking. It was just one of those artists who you just expected to live forever, really, or to a very old age, not in his 50s. That's completely terrible, really is. So yeah, it's basically just, I wouldn't say a hastily put together book, because of course it's been pushing a couple of years, a year and a half. If you can even see any of the pictures. Knowing me, I'll open it up on a really dodgy one. There you go. True to form. But yeah, it just basically, it's just talking about his life, as you'd expect, his career as both a solo artist and someone, of course, who was in Wham with Andrew Ridgeley and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, lots of photographs, quite heavy with the photos, but also a lot of text in there as well. So it's not just a picture book. It's something you can sit down and read. And yeah, just very sad. But George Michael, just a brilliant artist, really is. And yeah, one of my favourites without question. I wasn't getting teary-eyed there, by the way, just had an itch. I'd done my crying last year. Oh, how embarrassing. So moving on to what I've been listening to. So this is the Feelings debut album. You'll probably know a song called Love It When You Call, but they had other singles as well called Sewn, Rose, I think, was one. Never Be Lonely, I think that was a single. There may have been one more. It was either I Want You Now or Fill My Little World. It was one of those. So yeah, I was aware of this, obviously, because I used to have it. I did quite like it. It's a decent album with some kind of sleeper hits, if you like. And their second album I did get, but I didn't really get into it. And then I just completely lost touch with them. And I checked them out on Wikipedia about an hour ago, whenever it was, maybe a couple of hours ago. And, because I've probably been doing this for about an hour, this video. But yeah, and they've released like 3 or 4 albums since, including one a couple of years ago. I've not listened to any of them. For all I was aware, they may have split up. I had no idea, but no, apparently they're still going. It's Green Day. This is Nimrod from 1997. Not my favourite Green Day album by any stretch, but I think it's quite decent. I do remember buying it not long after it came out, back in the late 90s. Well, 97, I guess. And yeah, it does have some good songs on there. Nice Guys Finish Last, Hitching a Ride, Good Riddance, Time of Your Life. Obviously a much slower song than what we're used to for Green Day. Although they do like to come out, don't they, with these odd kind of slower songs, which are all right, but it's not really for me. I prefer like the power pop punk element to it, if you like. King for a Day, I always like that one. A little bit kind of cheap and cheerful kind of song, but I do like it. So yeah, it's a good, decent, I should say, album. Not my favourite, but if you like Green Day, I'm sure you're going to like it. Basically, the majority of their songs sound the same. You know, 3 chords are used. But despite that, it's fun, isn't it? I like him anyway. And then last but not least, I've been listening to this. This is Oasis and Don't Believe the Truth from 2005, I believe. Yeah, 2005. So I really like it. Now, it's really weird with me with Oasis, because obviously I love them as a band, but I'm one of those very strange music stroke Oasis fans who actually liked Oasis more and more as they went on. Most people will tend to say, oh, definitely Maybe, and then What's a Story, Morning Glory, and then after that they didn't like him. They went downhill, they became rubbish. For me, no, not at all. For me personally, I liked all their albums. Be Here Now I think is amazing, which was their 3rd album in 97. Their 4th album, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, is absolutely fantastic, and every single one I like. Now, alright, maybe some of their latter albums, I personally can't go through every single track list like on this and say brilliant, 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 brilliant. There's 1 or 2 which I'm like, maybe not. And I perhaps didn't get that feeling with The Feeling. There's a good one, poignant and relevant. Maybe I didn't get that feeling with Definitely Maybe and What's a Story, Morning Glory. Most, if not all of those tracks, really, you can go down and go outstanding, outstanding, outstanding. But yeah, I like them. I like them as they evolved as a band. And their last album, Dig Out Your Soul, I thought was excellent. I really did. So maybe I'm in a bit of a minority. I do accept that. But I like Oasis's latter stuff. And this, for me, is a really good album. Starts up really, really good with Turn Up the Sun. A really good intro. And just sets the tone. Lila's kind of a stomping, kind of typical Oasis anthemic song, if you like. The Importance of Being Idle is a brilliant song. Fantastic video. Guess God Thinks I'm Able is a really good song. Keep the Dream Alive is a good one. Let There Be Love, I think, which initially started off as it was going to be like a B-side or like a demo. Should really have been on Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, but wasn't. But ended up being on this. But for me, I really like it. I think it's a good album. So that's that. Now, let's move on to the questions. So, the first question is by Aaron Preston. Am I right in saying you're not a massive fan of Mario Kart? I can't remember, but I think it was one of your vids. I may have seen this on. If not, apologies. Well, yeah, you should apologise, because that's a really terrible thing to say about someone. No, obviously not. And then Aaron adds, I got a Switch last week and the games are so expensive compared to PS4. Yeah, I mean, I shake my head there, but I actually shake it in agreement, really. The prices on the Switch for some games are ridiculous. The very same game you can get on the PS4 or the Xbox One for like $15, $20, the Switch, $40. It's obscene, it really is. I know there's the portability factor, but for me, that's mental. You know, if you haven't got a PS4 and Xbox One, well, fair enough, you don't got much of a choice if you want to buy that game. But for me, yeah, there's no way I'm going to get a game on the Switch for $40 if I can get it on the PS4 for $15. Just not happening. Yeah, specifically regarding Mario Kart, Aaron, I'm not sure. I don't think I would have said I'm not a massive fan. What I may have said, because I do like them, but what I may have said is that they frustrate me. They frustrate me because every single one that I've ever played personally, I've not played all of them, but all the ones that I've played, there's a sense of, I don't know, just a sense of, what's the word? It's like cheating goes on. A sense of injustice was what I was looking for. You can be out in first position, and you can absolutely guarantee you're going to get absolutely pelted by blue shells, red shells, green shells, whatever colour they are, banana skins, lightning that comes down. You're punished, basically. You are punished for doing well, and I don't like it. It's every single game. I mean, I tried it on the Wii U, and I quite liked it. I've tried it on the Switch, and I mean, the game is quite good. It's quite fun until that happens, and then for me, it spoils the enjoyment. So I think the best way to play Mario Kart is what I've kind of deciphered, is to not be in first position, hold back, be in second or third. But of course, you're not really playing the game there. You're taking your hand off the trigger, the accelerator, and you're not playing it how you should. You're playing it to suit the game. And that's not how you should be playing it. You should be playing it how you want to play it. So, but I figured that if you do kind of hold off and you're in second or third position, then you don't get hit as much as you would if you're on first. And then basically, like the penultimate corner of the track, you then like really go pedal to the metal and hold the trigger down, the button down, and then you can finish in first if you time it right. But it's not really playing the game how it should be, really. It takes a lot of the enjoyment out of it. So I do like Mario Kart. The franchise is good. It just cheats too much, and it spoils, for me, my enjoyment. Next questions are from Dan90s. Thank you, Dan. Question number 1 is, what do you think is at the edge of the universe? Or what would you hope? I mean, who knows? It's just, the whole thing, it just blows your mind if you can think about it, or if you do think about it for too long. It's just, it's quite scary. I've touched upon this before, maybe last year, maybe early this year. It's probably last year, I guess. Either way. And I don't mind admitting this, because I think a lot of people maybe went through the same thing. But when I was a kid, it doesn't really happen now, but every now and again, I'm not going to lie, every now and again it does as an adult. But it's really more consigned to when I was a kid, and it would be specifically at night. You know, when everything's really quiet and you go into bed and you can hear a pin drop outside and you're trying to get to sleep, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it crops into your mind that your mortality, if you like, and what happens afterwards, and time, and the fact that it's always going by, and there's nothing you can do about it, and one day it's going to be the end, but time's going to go on regardless, just like it always has and like it always will, at least how we perceive it. And as a kid, when it was dark, and because you've got time to think and everything's quiet, it used to make me literally get out of bed, almost jolt up out of bed and pace the room. It was like a panic attack. It used to really frighten me, it scared me as a kid. And it's something which, as an adult, it still scares me, but I think as an adult, you just accept it, because it's going to happen, and it's not nice. You know, I don't think anybody watching this is happy with it at all, but maybe a lot of people are kind of at an ease with it, where you've just accepted it. And I think when you accept something, it does make it easier. It doesn't necessarily make it all right, but you accept it that little bit much more. It makes it easier for you to acknowledge, to accept, to absorb, I guess. And so yeah, that used to freak me out as a kid, not knowing what happens. Is there an afterlife? Are we reincarnated as people, or as animals, as things, whatever it may be? And if we are, do we retain any of that memory? Are we the same people? You know, it just blows your mind. You could be there all day, Aaron. Sorry, Dan, and Aaron as well. Anyone for that matter. We can be there all day talking about it. It's just, we'll never know the answers. And if we ever do know the answers, it'll be when we move on to that next plane, which probably isn't as life as we know it. It's kind of fascinating. It's without question quite scary, really, but it's interesting too. It really is. Who knows? There's that theory, of course, there's many theories, but there's a theory that we're all like a simulation. You know how we play like games like The Sims, the first one that springs to mind, or any computer game for that matter, and we're controlling characters, we're doing what we want them to do, and there's that theory that we are doing what other people want us to do. I think it's a cover of a Muse album, isn't it? Can't remember what you call it. The word's just gone out of my mind. but it's like a joystick. Someone's like holding a joystick or something like that, and then that's in itself is in a screen of someone holding a joystick, which is in a screen of someone holding a joystick. We're all kind of being controlled by someone else, but we've got this like kind of freedom or sense of free will. You know, we can do what we want. I'm saying this right now. I'm moving my arms and gesticulating wildly, but am I really doing it, or is someone else doing it for me? And the fact that someone else could be doing it for me, it's enough to freak you out, isn't it? You know, or for you to be watching this. Is it really you watching this, or is someone making you watch this? It's kind of really weird how it works. The fact of the matter is we don't know. We really don't know, and like I say, we possibly never will. And if we do, it'll be in another guise to whatever we move on to. It's a weird topic to talk about, Dan. It really is, because nobody knows the answers. We can all theorise. It's fascinating, but we just don't know. It'd be nice to hear your opinion, and maybe other people's opinion if you're watching this, and maybe you do a vlog video and you'd like to talk about it. It'd be nice to hear what people think. I'm not one of those people who says, oh, that's it, as soon as you die, nothing happens. I don't think that. And yeah, okay, maybe partially I think that because it's a bit scary, so I don't want to believe that. But I just feel, and I think we have these feelings, and it's just the way it is. For me personally, I do think something happens. I don't know what. I'm not religious in the slightest, so I'm not coming at it from that angle. But I just get this gut feeling in me that I kind of know, and I don't, of course, but I feel, and maybe through hope more than anything else, but I do feel like we do go on to something else. It's just, we can't comprehend it, because it's not life as we know it. Jim. Star Trek. So yeah, thanks Dan for that first question. I somewhat answered it, I think. Question number 2. Did you ever have a tab drink, in brackets late 80s or 90s? Might still be common in the US. And what did you think? Yeah, tab, or tab clear, as I remember it. I remember tab clear being a very, very brief thing in the UK. And I can be quite specific. I think I can be quite specific. It would have been 1993. And I saw it in the local supermarket, which was called Summerfields. Pretty certain it was called Summerfields. Before that, it was a Gateway, and after was an Asda. Pointless information for you. And I remember seeing it, thinking, I've never seen this before. Tab clear in like a white kind of can, essentially, and yeah, with red on it, maybe a hint of blue, I'm not sure, certainly red, and somewhat kind of transparent kind of wrapping that went round it. And yeah, I've never seen it before. I thought, that looks really cool. And I remember buying it, and with my friend, and we quite liked it. And then about 2 or 3 weeks later, we went down to the same supermarket to get whatever we were buying, and we saw that they were selling them all off for like 20 pence each, or maybe even less. And I remember buying a stack of them, even back then, junk food and stuff. Although back then, because I was so active, I didn't put on the weight. As an adult, different kettle of bloody fish. I was bloody thin as a rake back then, and very fit. But, and specifically regarding that, I remember the kids who lived opposite me were the ones who I sold my Super Nintendo to, stupidly. Oh, one of my biggest gaming regrets, in late 1993. But I specifically remember one of those brothers was going to that supermarket with his dad, and I said, oh, you're going down there now? And he went, yeah. I said, can I give you a quid, and can you get me like 5 cans of Tab Clear? And he went, yeah, all right. Might even have been more than that, I can't remember. I wanted to really stock up on them, because they were selling them off. So they went down, and 20 minutes later, an hour later, whatever it was, they came back, and they gave me my cans of Tab Clear. But I never saw them again after that. And from reading a few stories over the years, and I have looked, being so nostalgic and occasionally typing these keywords into Google, I have looked at what people remember about Tab Clear. And it seems as if it arrived in the UK, at least I can only speak for where I was and where other people have talked about as well on Google. It's like they brought this thing over, this brand of Tab Clear, which was very kind of big in the States, but it just didn't take off. The marketing was poor, people didn't know about it, so people didn't buy it, and they just canned it, so to speak. So most people, I think, if you are aware of Tab Clear, it would have been in around about 92, certainly 1993, because then it just vanished. So, question number 3 from Dan. What was your first alcoholic drink? He says, holding a tea. Mine was Super Strongbow. 3 cans at 15 at a party and blacked out. Nice, yeah. For me, well, I guess it would be, actually, let me have another sip. For me, I'd probably say, if we're being technical about this, Babycham would have been my first alcoholic beverage of choice. Or it was probably forced down my neck, really. Or sherry, something like that. But yeah, Babycham was really big in like the mid-80s, late 80s. Probably started in the 70s, I think, really. But it was on TV and everything. It was like everyone had it. It was ridiculous. So it would have been something like that. Sherry every Christmas, I'd probably have a little sip here and there. It makes my parents sound terrible. I mean, my dad's a policeman, so he's responsible, believe it or not. But, you know, Christmas once a year, have a little bit of sherry. But really, the late 80s, mid to late 80s, maybe the turn of the 90s, reminds me of like Heineken and McEwen's Lager. That's what McEwen's Lager, especially from the 80s, late 80s. It really does remind me of that. But I guess if we're going to be very technical about this in terms of like properly having a drink, not just a little sip at Christmas or New Year's or anything like that, proper like when you get to be a teenager. So when I was like 13 or 14, the big drink to have, and you were really cool if you had this, was Diamond White. Diamond White was the thing that teenagers had back in the early 90s. And it was essentially a cider. It really was. And I had a little bit here and there, but I just didn't like it. I think a lot of people didn't, but of course you said you did, because, well, you had to look cool. So you'd have like more than the odd swig here and there. But I wasn't a fan. But a friend of mine in particular, I mention him all the time really, especially recently. Whenever I talk about the Amiga and the ST and those kind of early 90s, Rob is someone who's very prominent in those kind of stories. Rob, Sam, Jono, a few of those people. And I remember Rob, he went through a phase around about 13 or 14, 15 as well. Obviously very, very young. With this Diamond White craze, if you like, was sweeping our school. And he drank loads of it. And we'd watch him drink like a bottle of it at like 14, a bottle of Diamond White. It was ridiculous, really, in hindsight, when we look back. And I remember one specific example. I was with him and another friend that I mentioned quite a lot, Danny. And we were like in a Subway. No, by Subway, I don't mean like the brand where you buy like, you know, sandwiches and stuff. I mean like an underground kind of Subway thing. And, or like an underpass. Not a Subway as in America either, where it's like trains and stuff. Like an underpass. Instead of like going across the road, go underneath. Anyway, and we were in there. So it would have been like early 90s. And Rob had so much to drink. About an hour before, he had challenged a bunch of like sort of 15, 16-year-olds to a fight. And we were like, what the hell are you doing? There's about 10 of them. And it was just him and he was like shouting at them. And it was like, seriously, we're going to get in trouble here. So we all kind of scarpered from that. When the kids started to accept Rob's offer of a fight, we all ran away. But then about an hour after that, we're like I say, we're in this Subway, walking from one side, trying to get out the other. And all of a sudden, Rob stopped midway through and he starts to kind of go like this, like as if he was swimming. And we're like, Rob, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm a fish. I've turned into a fish. And he wouldn't move. We were there for like half an hour because he was trying to swim out of the Subway and swim across the... We were walking, he was trying to swim. It was just ridiculous. He thought he was a fish. Now, I don't know if he was just pretending or not. Like I said, it's probably a good couple of hours after he had something to drink and he drank the whole bottle. So maybe there could have been an element of it going to his head. But just Diamond White reminds me of, like I said, him asking for them kids for a fight and then Rob pretending to be a fish or thinking he was a fish. And we were in a bit of a rush. We were like, come on. And it took half an hour to walk 5 minutes because he was swimming his way there. Oh, Christ, ridiculous. Mental days. Answer that one. Question number 4. And lastly, when are you doing your 90s fragrance walk down memory lane vid? The cool water story cracked me up. Yeah, if anyone doesn't know, I told a brief anecdote of some cool water aftershave that I stole from someone's house at my dad's friend's. How many have I got? My dad's friend's house, a fellow police officer. And I took it because I liked it and it smelled nice. I thought, I'm having that, you know, and I couldn't afford it. I was like 15. So I nicked it. Nicked it from the wrong person, of course. But I also, from that very same person's house, I nicked some pornographic videos. And yeah, maybe I'll tell that story again on that video if I do make it down. I know I said I would. It's just kind of timing it. Also, when is the best time to do it? Do I put it as one of these vlogs? Maybe I could do it as part of the vlog. You know, just like how I've talked about the World Cup in this one. Maybe I can talk about the aftershave story. Maybe I can make it a separate vid, but I don't know. I do want to do it. Whether they're funny stories or not is very much up to the person watching. Not all of them are going to be funny. The whole point of making the vid was to just talk about certain fragrances which remind me of certain things. Like some fragrances remind me of certain computers and video games and consoles. So there's nothing funny about that. So that was the premise. That will be the premise of the vid if and when I make it. As to when, I don't know, Dan. Soon. Thanks for reminding me. Okay, next question is from Jimmy M. Thank you, Jimmy. What have you seen, if you've seen any of it at all, at E3 that comes out soon that interests you? Me personally, Jimmy, thought Fallout 76 was great, and of course Forza Horizon 4 looked great, which to your benefit is now being set in as what we Yanks call the old country. Yeah, the old country, or the mother country is the other one, isn't it, which is kind of widely used. Yeah, a few games interest me. Now, I should say that both Dylan Craven and Pete Snestastic asked this question as well, or questions are similarly phrased. So I'm kind of killing 3 birds with 1 stone with this one, by giving the answer to Jimmy's question. I think he asked first, so it's only right and fair that I do that. Yeah, Jimmy, you mentioned Forza Horizon 4. Looks brilliant. I really do like it. But here's the thing. For me, it could have been set in Japan, which was one of the rumours. I still would have loved it. I don't care where it's set. I guess the fact that it's in the UK, it adds that personal touch to me a little bit more. But in all honesty, I'm not really that bothered, to be honest. I guess it's somewhere different, isn't it? Because most games tend to be set in America. And after a while, it's like, come on, there is a world out there. You know, we can do it in other places. Obviously, the last one was set in Australia, so that was nice. Japan will be a good one to do. They're definitely going to do that. It's probably going to be the next one. The UK was kind of a natural one for me to do. It was a next one. If you're not going to do another American one, well, the UK. Yeah, it's a smaller country, of course it is, but it's not like there's no terrain to race on. There's loads. A Lake District, the moors, the city life. There are places to go. It's not all about London, which is what some people tend to think. You know, there's vast countrysides out there. There's a lot of different terrain and landscapes. And so, for me, I was quite excited about the possibility. Nothing to do with any particular bias of being British, just the fact that I thought it could work as a game. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I really like the Forza Horizon games. Beyond Good and Evil 2 looks very, very good. But have we seen any gameplay? I can't remember off the top of my head. We've certainly seen like the cinematics, and that looks nice. But I don't even think I've played the first one. Was that on the 360? I'm not sure. But that looks interesting, so we'll see how that pans out. Assassin's Creed Odyssey looks good. I'm sure I'll try that. The last one, Origins, I started to play and then just got bored of it, really. It's a good game. It was just more of the same with like a different skin. It looks nice, it plays well. They've added a number of features into it which kind of work. But I don't know, maybe it's too much too soon. It hadn't come too long since I'd played Syndicate and finished Syndicate as well. So maybe I needed a bit of a break before moving on to Origins, and I pretty much started it almost straight away. So maybe I've just gone through a bit of burnout with that game. Burnout, there's one they need to bring back. I've played a Burnout game for ages. So there's that. What else have I written down? Cyberpunk 2077. Yeah, Cyberpunk 2077 looks really, really good. Again, have we seen much gameplay? I'm not sure we have, if any. But from what footage we've seen, looks really intriguing. Is it like an RPG kind of game, like a futuristic thing? It looks great. Whether it will be great, time will tell. But that's one I've definitely got my eye on. Maybe my highlight, possibly, of the whole E3. I've written down The Last of Us 2. I've got to be honest, I started The Last of Us on the PS3 about a year or two ago, maybe more. And it's a very, very dark game. Very dark. To the point where it's like, bloody hell, I could do without this. But I played it for about half an hour and I just haven't been back to it. It's not that it's not a good game. I can accept and acknowledge it's good. I had a bit of fun with it, even though it's very dark. But I think one of the reasons why I didn't persevere was that I thought, well, maybe I should get the PS4 version. It'll look a little bit nicer, a little bit fresher, the graphics look a little bit better, and I just haven't got round to doing it. So, The Last of Us 2 looks interesting. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure I'll pick it up, but I'd like to play the first one first. And then last but not least, I've written Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones looks really good. I bet it transpires to be absolutely bollocks, but it looks really, really good. I love that whole kind of pirate theme, sailing the high seas and all that kind of stuff, looting the treasure. And yeah, it looks very, very interesting. It looks very akin to Assassin's Creed, really. that same kind of gameplay and graphical style, but that is definitely one which I'm going to keep an eye on. And I think that's due out in 2019, annoyingly, like many of these games are. That's one of the things I don't like about E3. It shows all these great games, you get excited, and it'll be like, come in 2021. It's like, oh, piss off. You know, bring it out now. Don't talk about the game unless it's ready. I'm quite old school like that. I don't want to know about it if it's coming out in 2 years' time or 3 years' time. I want to know if it's coming out this year, maybe next year at an absolute and utter stretch. But it just annoys me. It's just a personal thing. So thank you, Jimmy, for that question. Next questions are from Wee Bob. Wee Bob is a channel which I've recently discovered. Again, one of those many situations where he left a comment on my channel. I'd never heard of him before, but I clicked on his channel and I discovered that he makes his own vids. And it's always a nice surprise to see people like that. So you might want to check out Wee Bob's channel. He does like kind of vlogs, if you like, and he's just got a handful of subscribers, really. He's not been doing it for long. So, as we all know, YouTube and getting subs these days is mightily difficult. Anyway, Wee Bob, thank you, Bob, for these questions. Have you seen the new Karate Kid movie with Will Smith's son? I really love the movie and the originals. So after that big build-up, I haven't, to be honest, Bob. I've not seen the movie, and I don't really want to. When it comes to things like remakes, is it a remake? Is it like what they call a reboot, or is it a standalone thing? I'm not sure. I don't think I'll be going out my way to see it anytime soon. I've seen clips of it, I've seen bits of it here and there. It doesn't look like it's my kind of thing. And especially if it is a remake, which I think it may be, or a reboot, call it what you will, I think I might avoid it. I really do. But who knows? I might, decide to inflict some pain, aesthetic pain on myself, on my eyes in the future and watch it. And it may transpire to be good. Time will tell. You didn't really say... No, you said you really love the movie. Oh, there you go then. You really love it. Fine. In that case, I'm still not going to watch it. No, listen, I'm not going to go out my way to watch it. But if I stumble upon it here and there, and if I'm a little bit bored, I may. Or if you and if others say, no, mate, honestly, give it a chance. It really is good. I may do it. I just get the feeling that I'm not going to enjoy it. The originals, on the other hand, brilliant. Really like them. And of course, in my last vlog, I talked about Cobra Kai, which I've still not finished watching that first season, by the way. Maybe by the time the next vlog comes along, I'll talk about it. So yeah, I love that Cobra Kai. That's really good. Love the original Karate Kid movies. But the remake, reboot, whatever it is, not sure. Question number 2. What's your favourite type of game currently? Open world, RPG, FPS? I'd say currently, it would be like the stealth kind of game. I mentioned Hitman. I briefly played it of late, and I love the idea of creeping around and taking my time. Another one I've been playing, not for ages actually, but I started playing ages ago, and I keep meaning to go back to it, is Thief. That game has got a bad reputation, I think, amongst gamers on YouTube, particularly in social media. I think reviews are pretty bad, but I quite like it. Again, make of that what you will. People say it's rubbish, I quite like it. It's like the Noel Gallagher syndrome, Arctic Monkeys. People don't like something, I listen to it, well, it's actually pretty good. And so they slagged off Thief, and I quite like it. It's not amazing, but it's quite good. Okay, next question is from Ash81B4U. Next 2 questions, actually. And the first one is, how well do you think Wolves can do next season, considering they now have deep pockets? Yeah, Wolves have got very wealthy owners. They won the Championship this season, so next season they're going to be in the Premier League, as Ash just said. And I think they can do all right, but it depends who they buy. It depends how much they spend. But they've got the money, and if you've got the money in football, then you've got a chance. They're also in Birmingham, surrounding areas. That's a big, big catchment area. So they can entice people there. Birmingham being quite a nice city. I say nice. When I was last there, it was bloody filthy. Apologies if you live there or you're from there. I'm not judging anyone. I'm just saying it was just like, I walked around, I was like, this place is a mess. Like, I can talk, like where I'm from is rough as ropes, but bloody hell, Birmingham, man. It's like another world. It was like bloody Middle East. Not that I'm saying that's... Oh, God, I'm just slagging everyone off, aren't I? I mean, I'm sure it's got better over time. Question number 2. You're popping around for a cuppa and a game on the Amiga. What 2-player game do you bring? I guess I should have used a prop for this one, Ash. I'll put a picture of it instead. I'd have to bring, initially, the one that springs to mind is one you sent me. Emily News International Soccer. I think you sent it to me anyway. Or was it Dave, Psycho Fox? I think it was you. I can't remember now. Oh, bloody hell. So many free gifts from people, it's hard to keep up. How embarrassing. I think it was you, to be honest, Ash, but I do stand corrected. But either way, I'd bring that game round. Emlyn Hughes International Soccer, for me, is one of the best games on the 16-bit platform. It's one of the best football games. People don't talk about it, but it's one of the best. Trust me, I'm a big football fan. I'm massively into the Amiga and the ST. And so when I say it's good, it's not going to be bollocks. It's a good game. And I used to have it on the Amstrad as well, and I loved it. Not just that, but when I had it on the Amstrad and I converted all my friends to it, I didn't just convert them to the Amstrad version, but my friends who had Commodore 64s and Spectrums, I made them. I mean, I didn't force them, but they liked the game so much, they went out and they bought Emlyn Hughes International Soccer on their Commodore 64s and Spectrums respectively, and furthermore, they loved it. So it's just a brilliant game. Whatever the system, it's really, really good. If you've got an Amiga or an ST and you like football, you have to have Emlyn Hughes International Soccer. It's brilliant. It's Rodland, or is it Rodland? England, or is it England? Just saying. I'd probably bring that one. That's a good two-player game, Ash. That's a good one. We'd have fun with that. Premier Manager, it's another football game. That's a brilliant game. You can have I think, up to 4 players on that one. That's a good one. But I think, yeah, Emlyn Hughes and maybe, still looking over there, Lotus, that's a good one. I'll just bring 2 because you've got so many Amiga games. Your Amiga collection's ridiculous, so you'll probably have them. So I'll bring Emlyn and Rodland, or Rodland, whatever you want to call it. And we'd enjoy those over a cuppa, or a beer, or a Diamond White, or whatever it may be. So next time I'm in the UK, bearing in mind I've not been there for 10 years, we'll do that. Maybe not the Diamond White bit. Cup of tea, I think. Next question's Damo. What are you playing on the Switch? Nothing. Not been playing it for ages. It's a brilliant bit of kit, just not been touching it. Partially because one of the things that frustrates me is what, was it Dan said? No, it was Aaron, wasn't it? What Aaron said before about the prices on a lot like the cross-platform games. I can buy the same game on the PS4 for like $15. The Switch is $40. It's just not happening. But there are a few games coming out that I am looking forward to. There's the Smash Tennis, Mario Tennis Aces, something like that, isn't it? I'm looking forward to that. Oh, that's it. Mario Tennis Aces and Super Smash Brothers. Getting confused there. So those are 2 that are on my radar. Metroid Prime 4, Super Metroid game. I think it's called Metroid Prime 4 or something like that. I'm looking forward to that. A number of others. There's the Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, but I had that on the Wii U. And by all accounts, it's the same game. Question number 2. Thoughts on the recent hacking of the Switch? Would you put emulators on yours? And then the second question, if a mini, or a third I guess really, if a mini N64 comes out, will you get one? Regarding the emulation or the emulators on the Switch, as long as it's not going to bugger anything up and it's simple and I could do it, I'm not technological whatsoever. If we're starting talking about soldering things and downloading things and files, I'd probably struggle with it. But if it's straightforward, then yeah, I probably would, to be honest. Regarding the N64, I prefer to buy the boxed original games, but it depends how many games come with the mini N64. Is this actually happening now as well? Because I have heard rumours. I don't know if it's official. But it depends how many games and what games. And also, will it be able to be hacked? It probably will. So I'd be potentially interested, but really I prefer to get the box games for all that kind of stuff. So maybe, I guess, in answer. And then last but not least, from Damo, question number 3 or 4. Have you ever played any of the Legacy of Kain series? You should. It's funny you mention that because I was watching Owen, the Boss Who 77, and I'm pretty certain the other day he showed that on his pickup vid. And even funnier than that, not literally funny, I'm sure you're not laughing at this story, but even funnier than that, is that game, which I think Owen said fetches like 30 quid, I used to be able to pick that up for like £1 or 2, or see it for £1 or 2. It was one that people couldn't give away. It was ridiculous. And I would have had it. In fact, I know I had it. But I can't remember what it was like. The thing is, back then, those kind of games, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, all that kind of stuff, it just wasn't my kind of thing. So I may have put it on for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes here and there, but I wouldn't have persevered with it. It just wasn't my bag, if you like. Whereas now, all these years later, it very much is something that I'll get a kick out of, absolutely. So I may pick it up in the future. I used to have it on the Dreamcast, again, many years ago, and as well as having it on the PS1, but with it not being my thing, I just didn't give it a chance. But if I was to do that now, then yes, I think I would. Next set of questions. we'll maybe rattle through this a little bit because I touched upon this before. Let me just have another drink. These questions are from AD Sneaker Freak or Addy Sneaker Freak. Football questions for the World Cup. He says, okay, World Cup predictions questions this time, mate. Winners. Well, I think winners, you can't really look much further than Brazil, to be honest. I know I'm not going to win any awards for this. Brazil are going to be there. France, Spain, England, maybe. I'm not sure. Probably one of the main ones. I still think Germany, but they've got to beat Sweden. They've got to beat them or they're in big, big trouble. So question number 2, top scorer. Ronaldo, because he's got 4 so far, so he's leading the way. Yeah, he's got 2. The guy, Cherchiev, or I know I butchered that. He's got 3 now, hasn't he? Harry Kane's got 2. He may, hopefully, if England beat Panama, could grab a goal or 2 there. So he could be there or thereabouts, Harry Kane. But yeah, probably going to be someone like Ronaldo. And I'm not just saying that because he scored 4 already. But it's Ronaldo, isn't it? He scores a lot of goals. So I'll say him. Question number 3, surprise package in brackets, as if I didn't know what it meant. Underdog that gets quite far. Yeah, I'd say potentially Croatia. Now, admittedly, they've just beaten Argentina 3-0, so it's very easy to say that when they beat a fellow big nation so convincingly that they could win it, but they very could. And I do think they're dark horses. The other dark horses, I guess, are Belgium. But part of me just thinks, and in a way this could be the next question, the answer to the next question, but I will answer it here. Because they're a cross between a surprise package and a flop, which is the next question. The thing is with Belgium, you don't know how well they're going to do. Yes, they beat Panama, big deal. But they remind me a little bit of England in previous tournaments, where you look at their team, and on paper, in theory, they should do quite well. Good individuals, but they don't quite do anything when it comes to the major tournaments. And so it wouldn't surprise me if Belgium kind of get knocked out second round quarter-final. But then potentially they could win it as well. And so they could be a surprise package. They kind of cover everything, really. They're like a dark horse, they're somewhat favourites, and they're a surprise package. It's quite a tough World Cup to call. And then your last question, Steve, regarding flops. It could be, well, right now you've got to say Argentina, haven't you? They got the draw against Iceland, and they've just been battered by Croatia. And without Messi, they look awful. They've got to win the next game. Who knows how that's going to go. So as it stands, you'd probably say them. I don't think Spain have looked too good, to be honest. They keep the ball a lot, but their style of football really frustrates me. I just don't like it. I can appreciate it. There's a time and a place for that kind of keep ball. I just find it boring. I don't like it. Even if it's one touch and quite technical, just go forward and score a bloody goal. Don't keep the ball. It just annoys me, personally speaking. So, yeah, that's what I'll say to that. Thank you very much, Steve, for those questions. We'll see as the World Cup pans out. I'll talk more about it in 2 weeks. I bet you can't wait. Another segment on the Friday Brew. The Friday World Cup Brew. So, next question's from Snestastic. Thank you, Pete. Question number 1. What would you like to see from the next Xbox? Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because at the press conference, didn't Phil Spencer... I hesitate there because I nearly called him Phil Spectra. That's someone else entirely. Definitely wasn't Phil Spectra on stage. It was Phil Spencer. He talked, I was going to say he kind of let it slip. He didn't really, he just basically just said it, that the new Xbox, the next console, is deep in development. Now that, to me, says that's going to come a lot sooner than 2020 or 2021, which Pete, I think you'd said the previous vlog. I think, and I'm just taking an educated guess from what he said and the way gaming's going and how Xbox are way, way, way behind PlayStation, I think the next Xbox is going to come out next year. That's what I'm thinking, and I also think they need it. They need to get a big head start. Of course, the problem is, if they get a head start, then Sony delay it for a bit with all their fan base that they've got. Maybe Sony can then wait for better technology to come along, release it a year later, and then already, by which time the new Xbox is obsolete. It's like Xbox are kind of damned if they do and damned if they don't. They've really got to make sure that their hardware is really, really good. And the games are good as well, but that's not my problem. As a gamer, I'm excited. I don't really care who wins all these battles. I just want to see the best thing as a gamer for me to buy and then play. So that's what I'd want to see, Pete. I'd want to see something which is cutting edge, which is the best it can be, and it stands to reason, I guess, doesn't it? But I want to see games. Oddly enough, I want to see a lot of exclusive games. The Xbox used to be, with the Xbox and the Xbox 360, there used to be a lot of games, exclusives, that there was a reason to buy and own an Xbox. And listen, I am not one of those people who says there's no games to play on the Xbox One. Of course there are. There's some really good games. There's just not enough. That's the problem. Question number 2. What street games, if any, did you play with your friends as a kid? Me and my mates, Pete and his, would play Kirby a lot. I don't know if you know what that is. It involves a ball and a street curb. Nothing complicated. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? I used to absolutely play Kirby. I loved it. Now, I don't know if the variations kind of varied from maybe region to region. And of course, bear in mind, I've not played this for 20 odd years. Probably more than that, 25 years. But from my recollection, obviously you'd have the ball and you'd stand at either ends of the street and you'd try and throw it until it hit the curb full on. But didn't it have to bounce back at least halfway? I'm sure it was halfway. Maybe that's what it was for our street anyway. And furthermore, yeah, it wasn't just a case of maybe region to region. I think rules differed from street to street, from gang to gang, depending on what you did. And if that was the way it worked, if the ball had to bounce halfway, at least halfway, like halfway through the street, then didn't you have to stand halfway through and you got like an extra shot or something like that? It's like, kind of like a basketball thing, wasn't it? With like the free throws. I'm sure it was something like that. At least that's how we did it. And if it hit the curb and bounced off at an angle and didn't cross the halfway point of the street, I don't think it counted. Or if it bounced up. Something like that. I can't quite remember. But either way, Pete, yeah, I used to love that game. The simplicity of games. But here's the thing. Yeah, it was simple and it was cheap, i.e. free. It was amazing. It was great to play those games. So yeah, we used to absolutely love it. Riding our bikes, BMXs and then latterly mountain bikes. Used to do that on the heathland and just riding around the block, racing each other around the block, or even just casually just riding around having a chat. You know, just the naivety of youth, the naivety of the 80s and the 90s. It's all before the internet. You know, if you ask a kid these days to do that, they'll just tell you to bugger off. But to us, that was great. But of course it was great because there was no alternative. It's not as if we had the option to go, do you know what, it's alright, I don't want to play Kirby, I'm going to play Xbox or PlayStation. I'm going to go on the internet and go and watch YouTube. We didn't have that choice back then. So it was like, want to play Kirby? Alright, might as well, why not? But we loved it, didn't we? It was great. And then the only other game I can think of that we played, I say game, was Knock and Run. Knocking on people's doors and running away. But again, what an amazing game. We all did it. It's a brilliant one. I remember once I upped the ante a little bit, and I was really nasty by doing this. It was a friend of mine called Sam. Not the Sam that I was talking about before, or usually talk about. It was another Sam. And one day, it was at night, we were bored. I could picture the house that we did it at. It's amazing how the mind works and we remember all this stuff. The memory retention is incredible. It certainly is for me. People often say that about me, that my memory's so good, and I guess I've just always been that way. But anyway, we were playing Knock and Run outside this one particular house, and I remember going, like, really deviously, like I was an actor or something. I remember going, I tell you what, why don't we just mix it up a little bit here? And he went, what do you mean? I said, well, why don't you knock on the door, and instead of just like running away, why don't you ask if someone's in? And he went, well, who? And I went, bear in mind I knew who lived there, and I went, oh, I don't know, why don't you ask if like Paul's in or something like that? Knowing full well Paul lived there. So he knocks on the door, and the mother, it could have been Paul, that would have been hilarious. But the mother, I'm guessing, answered the door. And she went, oh, you know, hi. And he was like, hi, yeah, is Paul in? And he went, yeah, I'll just go and get him. And the look on my friend Sam's face, he just absolutely horrified. He couldn't believe it. And he just scarped and he ran, obviously. And then we ran like, around the corner until we could still see the door. And we saw like, Paul arrive at the step. And he's looking around and he's going, oh, there's no one there. Ridiculous. It would have been absolutely hilarious if Paul had answered, well, to me anyway, if Paul had answered the door. Well, what do you want? Question number 3. Did you have any nicknames when you were younger? Mine, Pete's, was Squidge, because I didn't have a bone in my bottom of my nose. You shouldn't have said that, Pete. Everyone's going to call you Squidge now. Squidge-tastic. That'll be... You wanted a new channel name. You got one now, Squidge-tastic. I didn't have any at all. I'm not giving you any ammunition. I kind of did, but I didn't. So, yeah. The thing is, the one that used to annoy me, it's not really a nickname as such, it's just laziness. When people would say, Al, I hated that. I absolutely couldn't stand it. Even to this day, don't like it, never will. If you call me Al, you're being blocked. Probably joking, but I just never liked it, something about it. Maybe because I've just always found it lazy. If you can't say Alex, come on. Have you got short on Alex to Al? Are you that lazy? Do me a favour. You know, if you didn't want to call me Alexander, fine. Don't, by the way. I can get that, but don't shorten it Alex to Al. That's proper lazy, that is. But the other thing, and I'm setting myself up for a bit of a ribbon here. It's not my fault. Google it. But a nickname in Scotland in particular for Alexander is Sandy, believe it or not. So a lot of people would either call me Sandy or Sand, because they couldn't be bothered to say Sandy, so they say Sand instead. So that kind of stuck around with me for years and years and years. There's a lot of friends who still call me that, even to this day. So it's kind of really funny. Just as a nickname, obviously, it's not my name. But if you Wikipedia or Google Alexander or Sandy, especially Sandy, it'll say an abbreviated term for Alexander. Learn a new thing every day. So other than that, not really. A play on the sand was Saunders. One friend called Luke used to call me Saunders in the very late 80s after Dean Saunders, the footballer. And because he just didn't want to say Alex, he didn't want to say Sand, so he called me Saunders instead. So that was a weird one. Other than that, not really. It's always pretty much just been Alex, really. Or Sand. Don't start calling me Sand. But so that's that one. But Squidge, Pete, that's funny. You shouldn't have said that, mate. You're going to get a ribbon for that one. Squidge-tastic. Question number 4. Like me, you love your vinyl. Do you find it easy to buy an album that has only had a CD release? In brackets, I sometimes procrastinate, especially if any artist's previous albums were released on vinyl. He's gotten better at not caring and buying an album no matter what the format recently. So do you mean if, say, you've started to buy vinyl and then one of your favourite artists has just released a CD and the uniformity is kind of a problem because you want to get a vinyl, but now you can't? Or if, I think what you were saying there, a particular artist has released vinyl and you've got that vinyl and then all of a sudden they don't release a vinyl for their next album, they release it on CD. If that's what you mean, or something like that, then yeah, it's kind of annoying, isn't it? I think it comes down to uniformity. It shouldn't matter. Like you said, you've kind of wrapped your head around it now, so it's not so much of a problem. I'm sure it's still a mild annoyance, because we're quite similar like that. If it annoys you, it's always going to annoy you, but you learn to live with it a little bit, really. So, yeah, that annoys me too. It's slightly different, and I hinted upon it earlier on. Still got it here as a prop, of course. But the feeling. Now, I don't have any vinyl by the feeling. I probably would have, in an ideal world, picked it up on vinyl, but I did have a quick look and I couldn't see it. And I wasn't that bothered to the point where I've got to wait, I've got to get it on vinyl. And then also there's the added problem that it could be quite rare and cost £100 or dollars or more than that. And do I really want to pay that kind of money for the feeling? Really? Absolutely not. So I was happy to get it on CD. And it doesn't bother me because I've got CDs behind me, I've got a lot more than that kind of hidden away in some of these drawers as well. So having a CD doesn't bother me. It used to. It absolutely used to. These days, for me, I've not particularly got any absolute guaranteed, uniformed way of buying something. I don't mind buying CDs. In fact, I've really started to buy, intentionally, more CDs than vinyl because I don't want to get into that mindset of only buying vinyl because it can be very, very expensive. So I tend to mix it up a little bit. And what I found that I have started to do, and this kind of works for me, is if I had the CD all those years ago, back in the day, then I'm happy to buy it back now on CD. It kind of works for me. I don't have to buy it on vinyl. And then last but not least, question number 5, is there anything else you would like to collect for besides games and vinyl? Example, or e.g.sports, memorabilia, cassettes, stamps, action figures, etc. I know records aren't actually a collection as we just buy them as they are released, but they can be seen as a collection due to the amount we own. Yeah, absolutely. Time for a well-deserved drink there. Yeah, they can. It's a bit like gaming, isn't it? Gaming can be seen as a collection. I don't think I've got a collection of games. I think, Pete, we were speaking about this a few months back, and I think you said, well, you see me as being a collector. And I was like, well, I'm not. And you said, well, I think you are. I was like, well, I'm not. I think it can be perceived because you buy games that, yeah, you are a collector, or if you buy records or whatever. When I buy records, I'm not collecting these records or these CDs. I'm not collecting them at all. I'm buying them when I want to buy one, when I want to listen to it. So I've got it to listen to when I'm in the mood in the future. So I can't think of anything, Pete, to be honest. Action figures, not really. I wouldn't mind buying back a few like Star Wars things and, you know, the nostalgic toys I had as a kid, Transformers, Turtles, whatever else, Thundercats. But what would I do with them? Part of me thinks, what the hell would I do with these bloody things? I'll tell you the other thing, which I have thought about in more recent years. I've not yet done it. Might be a bit embarrassing, but I don't care, I'm going to say it anyway. I like the idea of buying back Lego sets. The proper nostalgic stuff that I had again as a kid. So pirate ships, which by the way are obscenely priced. They're really expensive. But pirate ships, like the police station, the fire station, the knights with the castles. I just like the idea of doing it. I know it sounds a bit weird, doesn't it, at my age? But yeah, I like the idea of doing that. Maybe in the future, we'll see. So thank you, Pete. And then last but not least, we have a couple of questions, 3 questions from Dylan Craven. Of course, his dad is John Craven, from John Craven's News Round. Isn't really, but I say it all the time. Dylan's furious. I'm surprised he keeps asking questions, because I keep saying that. Anyway, question number 1. What is it that you like most about being part of the gaming stroke, music stroke, football community on YouTube? I'm not part of the football community. And you could say I'm not even part of the music community, if you remember my vlog from a couple back, where it is a nightmare to get any attention off people who make music vids. Give or take a few, who are very nice, by the way. I've not got anything bad to say against anyone. It's just a very kind of insular, dare I say, community. And that's not, I'm not having a dig, I'm not having a go, and I don't mean that to sound as negative. I just think it's one of those places where once you get to know them, they're fantastic, but bloody hell, you've really got to get to know them before they start watching your stuff and commenting and all that kind of thing. It can be hard work. But I understand that. I do understand. There's me on the outside trying to kind of get in. I don't know them, they don't know me. Relationships and friendships take time, obviously. Well, definitely friendships. I'm not trying to look for a relationship with them. So, but I don't consider myself part of the music community. If someone happens to be watching this who watches my music vids and they make music vids, I don't mean any offence by that. If you consider me part of the community, then great. I'm happy to be considered. I'm just saying I don't feel part of it. Not yet. Maybe one day. But I do feel part of the gaming community because I've been doing it for so long. But what do I like most, you've said? I think it is just that part of a community, a feeling that you know people. Like, the thing is, Dylan, I mean, I feel I kind of know you. We've never met in person, but we've talked or corresponded through these questions. You're asking me questions, I'm answering them. I get a bit of an insight as to what you're like with the questions you're asking. You get to know a little bit more about me in terms of how I'm answering them. And same with everybody else who asks questions. Or if you've just watched my videos over the years, you get to watch me, you get to know what I'm about. And me, maybe with your vids as well. You get to know each other. And I strongly, strongly disagree with people, strongly disagree, who say you can't make real friends through YouTube. People who say, oh, you can't get to know them, you don't really know them. It's absolute bollocks. Of course you do. Again, speaking of Pete, I know Pete very well. I consider Pete a mate. I've never met him in person, but we've talked for years on Twitter and on YouTube. Lebossu77, Ash81B4U, Dave Psycho Fox. I'll stop there actually because I'm going to miss people off. But you'll know if we've talked and known each other for years, I consider you a friend. So you better consider me one in return, or else. So yeah, I don't know why people are so negative and say that people can't be your friends because you don't know them. Of course you know them. Absolute nonsense. So that's what I like most. It's getting to know people, and yeah, all right. I'm sure it would be nice to take it that next step and to meet people. For me, it's bloody impossible as long as I'm in America to meet people in the UK. But I do like the idea of going to like these convention things or whatever you want to call them. I like the idea of that. Or more for me, I like the idea of just going around someone's house. Like Ash said before, he says you're popping around for a cup of tea, you know, and we'll play the Amiga. I love the idea of doing. Question number 2. What is your favourite vacation spot in the US? Well, I've been to a lot of places in America, but the only real places I've been for proper kind of holidays, if you like, or vacations, are other places in California and Florida. Went there when I was a kid. I've been to New York. I was there a few days. Somewhat of a holiday, I guess. And I experienced it. I wasn't just there, you know, cocooned into a bloody hotel for 3-4 nights, whatever it was. I went around Manhattan and looked around and experienced and lived the life. There's some stories to share for another day, believe you me. But all good ones, fun, but bizarre. but good nonetheless. And yeah, I've been to places like, briefly, Chicago. It was very brief. Seattle. I've been to a lot of places. Minnesota. I think it was Minnesota, where the snow was kind of like neck level. I'm slightly exaggerating. But it was really, really deep. I mean, crazy. I've never seen anything like it before. And also, it was freezing. Absolutely freezing. I've never experienced snow that deep or that cold in my life. It was mental. See, I've been to a number of places, but to pick a favourite, I'd have to be a little bit soft and say probably something like Disney. Now, whether that's Disney in California or Disney in Florida, I've been to them both. It's just a nice place to chill out. I think too many people associate Disney with like being either for kids or for girls. It really isn't. It's for people of all ages. If you just allow yourself just to have fun, it really is. It's good. It's a good thing to do. Chill out. The weather's usually nice, of course, and there's a lot of stuff to do, a lot of fun to have. Whether you're going with a family or with just your friends or whatever it is, you don't have to go with kids. Kids obviously love it, but adults can do it as well. And adults do it. Just go by themselves. Or with their wife, or their girlfriend, their boyfriend, their friends, whatever it may be. It's absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, I'd probably say something like a Disney, and probably the one in California as well, because it's my neck of the woods. So, biased. And last but not least, as gamers, we often amass large game libraries. Do you think people of our age are running out of time to play them all? What with work and family commitments, etc. And do you think we have too many games? Well, I'm not running out of time, mate. Are you? Where are you off to? I mean, I'm planning on getting to at least to 100 and getting a letter off the Queen. So, I mean, obviously it won't be the current Queen, clearly. Might even be a king by that point, who knows? But I know what you mean. But I've got to be honest, in answer to your question, not really. But what I found is that the older I get, and I can only speak for myself, I'm starting to realise that you can't own everything. And in fact, really, what I'm starting to realise is I don't even want everything. If you go back a few years on YouTube, because of that easily influential thing, I'd convinced myself I wanted to get like an Atari Jaguar, and then I wanted to get a Neo Geo. I mean, it even happened to a very small degree, the other day. I was watching Dave Retro Nintendo, and he's got a new console on there, and it's a PC Engine. Apologies if I've just spoiled that, but the video's been up a week. You've probably watched it, and I'm not interested in getting the PC Engine. Not really. I mean, I'm a little bit curious about it, but more because of a nostalgic perspective, because I remember it when I was a kid, from like Mean Machines and all that kind of stuff. And so Dave's making the vid, and what am I doing halfway through the vid? I'm opening up an adjacent window, typing into eBay, PC Engine. How much is that going for? And then Dave will show off a game, and I'll be like, typing it in with my little dizzy fingers. How much is that game going for? And it's just ridiculous. And I don't want a PC Engine. I don't want one at all. But that obsession, that the old habits come out, don't they? But I had to quickly kind of tell myself, what am I doing? I mean, there's no harm looking. I didn't buy, and I didn't even come close to buying. But I looked, and I just thought, I just don't want it. Maybe one day, but not right now. I don't care. So as I've gotten older, I've realised I think certain things are for me, certain things aren't. And I'm still not perfect with it, but I'm absolutely getting better, without a doubt. But it's an ongoing process. It's a learning process. The older you get, the better at it you get, certainly in theory. That's the way it is for me anyway. So in terms of time running out, I mean, well, yeah, technically we're all getting older. And yes, we all have different commitments, family commitments, work commitments, other hobbies, other interests, whatever it may be. But yeah, I tend to watch where I buy. I mean, even in terms of the volume of pickups these days, if you go back a few years, I used to have a pickup video every other week. We all did. It was what we did. If somebody uploaded a video 5-6 years ago on YouTube in your subscribers feed, you can pretty much guarantee, it was a pickups vid. Because that's what we all did. Maybe it was a gameplay vid, but most people did the pickup vid, because that was what was common back then. But these days I just buy a game once in a blue moon, every now and again. Sometimes I buy 2 or 3 at once, but it's very seldom. Very seldom. I tend to buy 1 game or 2 games that I want, play them, enjoy them, move on, a month or 2 down the line, buy another few. And that's why my pickup videos have kind of dried up a little bit. And that's another reason why my pickup videos are starting to morph into like a what am I currently playing, where I can show what I've been playing and show some of the new games as well, because I'm not buying enough to make pickup vids. So that's that. So anyway, I think that just about wraps up the vid. Thank you to everyone who's watching. I'm going to do a bit of editing now, just to trim it down because it's gone on for a long, long time. They always do. I always mean for them to go on for like an hour at best. but they always go on for pushing 2. So if you have got any questions, or if you have got any questions, I should say, for next week, please put them in the description box. In fact, it'll be for 2 weeks from now. And until then, thank you for watching. My next vid, I guess, will be sometime next week, but I'm not going to promise because I usually do that and then fail to deliver. It'll definitely be within 2 weeks. Thanks for watching. See you later.